Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zeng here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online VGC 15 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. If you have not checked out yesterday's episode, I highly recommend it, especially that second game. It was a really fantastic game, and you don't want to miss out on it. We're just going to jump onto the ladder today, trying to reach the rating of over 1700 in our last two episodes with this team, which we've used for quite a while now. I know a bunch of you guys have been commenting saying you want to see a new team, so no worries, we will be featuring a new team next week. We're going to find Kyle from Ohio right away to kick things off with a rating of 1597. As always, if you enjoy Road to Rank, please share your support by leaving a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. Kyle's got a pretty strong and standard looking team here of Aegislash, Terrakion, Kangaskhan, Landorus, Rotom-Wash, and Cresselia, so epitome of VGC 2014 here. Both of us have 4 of the 6 same Pokemon in Kangaskhan, Landorus, Aegislash, and Rotom. Meanwhile, he's got Terrakion and Cresselia, while I've got Volcarona and Togekiss. Unfortunately, I don't think either Volcarona or Togekiss are too fantastic here because he's got the dual Rock Slide. I feel like you could make a case for Volcarona, Togekiss not as much. Volcarona, if you manage to get a Quiver Dance up, it can still be pretty good in this matchup, but getting the first Quiver Dance off will be quite difficult. So, I really want to figure out what I want to lead with right now, and let's see. The mirror match here, just in terms of 4 of the 6 same Pokemon, is quite difficult. Just because, you have no idea what he's going to be bringing. I mean, it makes sense for him to bring both Terrakion and Landorus, so maybe I could take advantage of that by bringing my Landorus and Aegislash. I guess the real question is, do I want to bring that Volcarona? Because I could just go with Kangaskhan, Rotom, Landorus, and Aegislash, which is, the core 4 I typically go with, but in this game it doesn't really look like Togekiss is that good. I mean, Tailwind's nice, but other than the Tailwind, not doing too much, and the weakness to Rock Slide's quite scary, and Aegislash, of course, as well. But part of me wants the Volcarona just so I can hit his Aegislash and his Rotom for a bit more damage. Let's see. So part of me actually wants to lead Kangaskhan Volcarona, but that's really weak to the Terrakion lead. Yeah, I don't think that's a great call, actually. I feel like he's going to lead a combination of Landorus, Terrakion, and Kangaskhan, so I'm actually going to lead with Aegislash and my own Landorus. Yeah, I like that. And in the back, I want Kangaskhan. Do I want Rotom? Yeah, I'm going to go with Rotom. So, one of the scary things about playing with this team, and this Rotom in particular, is the fact that it's so frail. Unlike bulky Rotoms with Citrus Berry, it can't really take Attack Swell at all, so even a Kangaskhan's like Double Edge can knock it out in one hit, which is kind of concerning. So protecting it will be important, and unfortunately I don't have speed control since I didn't bring the Togekiss, but I didn't really think it was appropriate for this match. So I'm going to lead with my Landorus and Aegislash as Kyle goes with Cresselia and Terrakion. That's actually a really ideal lead matchup here for me, just because Terrakion is doing absolutely nothing, and I can U-turn and Shadow Ball the Cresselia first turn. So I'm pretty pleased about this position that, we start in. Let's see. Terrakion here might choose to switch out. That's not really a concern. Yeah, I'm just going to U-turn and Shadow Ball Cresselia first turn. I want to conserve Landorus since Intimidate's important for the remainder of the game. And you can see how if I led with Kangaskhan Volcarona, it would have been a more difficult of a game. Though I guess if I led Kang Volcarona, I could have faked out Terrakion and Quiver Danced. But regardless, this is probably one of the best lead matchups I could have asked for, since I definitely have the momentum right from the beginning, and I can get my Landorus out from a potential Ice Beam or Icy Wind from that Cresselia. So Cresselia and Terrakion, neither can really touch Aegislash, so that's really important. I think that's been a pretty common trend in the last couple of episodes this week. Opponent's inability to really knock out Aegislash. He goes for a Protect with Terrakion, which I'm more than okay with since I did, not target it here at all, figuring you would either switch out or Protect. So this works out in my favor. Let's see if he has Rocky Helmet on Cresselia. Sometimes they do like to carry it. Nope, he doesn't. So Shadow Ball should be able to knock it out, which is really nice, and I'm going to be able to get a free switch into whatever I want. So the real question is, do I want Kangaskhan or do I want Rotom? Well, I'm going to knock out Cresselia here, so that means he'd get a free switch in. And because of that, I think Kangaskhan is a bit better here. Just because I get Fake Out pressure next turn as well, so I could, theoretically Fake Out and Flash Cannon the Terrakion. He does go straight for the Ice Beam here. I mean, I could have switched into Rotom to resist the Ice Beam, but Kangaskhan shouldn't take too much damage here. But he gets the freeze! That's the one thing, I could have walked into, so that's really unfortunate. The first turn still worked out very nicely in my favor, but you'd imagine if Kangaskhan wasn't frozen here, it'd actually be a lot better. But I actually don't knock him out with Shadow Ball, which is actually ideal in this position just because of the fact that now I can focus my efforts on Terrakion here. That freeze is still really unfortunate though. I'm gonna Flash Cannon Terrakion. And the question here is, should I just sack the Kangaskhan? Yeah, I'm going to go for the fake out, and if I get it, obviously that's great. If I don't, you know, it is what it is. But that free sets me back a lot. We'll see if I can unthaw here, though. That's really upsetting, but that's part of the game. And if my opponent's smart here, he would have close combat in an Ice Beam the Kangaskhan slot. But I unthaw. Okay, great. So I got really worried there, but fortunately, works out in my favor as I'm going to be able to knock out Terrakion here, which is fantastic. That is really, really good news here. So clutch on thaw. He's going to go for the Thunder Wave, though, with Cresselia onto the Aegislash. Unfortunately, not onto Kangaskhan, so I'm more than okay with that. Hopefully, I can attack through this Paralysis, though. And I do get the Flash Cannon off, which is great. So really good first 2 turns for me there, despite a quick scare from the Ice Beam freeze. But fortunately, that 20% working out in my favor. Terrakion's going to go down, and it's a 3-2 lead right now. 4-3 lead, excuse me. With this Cresselia heavily damaged, having revealed Ice Beam and Thunder Wave with the leftover. So presumably Psychic or Psyshock, and then a last move, like maybe Moonlight, maybe Trick Room. I would expect one of the two, though. You would imagine him have gone for the Moonlight that last turn. So he's going to bring in Kangaskhan. I'm really obviously happy just to see that. And let's see. I presume he's going to Thunder Wave the Kangaskhan slot. So I kind of want to switch out into Landorus here, get the Intimidate off, and just King Shield. That's a safer play. And I'm just looking at his back, too. I mean, he could either have Landorus, Rotom, or Aegislash in the back, so I do want to conserve my Rotom for that. So yeah, I'm going to switch in Landorus. Even if he predicts me here and goes for an Ice Beam and knocks it out, it just means a free switch him back into my Kangaskhan, and I would have gotten a free Intimidate off against him, so I don't mind this very much. Still scary, you know, game to play out here, but I presume he might want to, like, fake out Thunder Wave Kangaskhan here. That's definitely a potential play, but we'll see if my opponent predicts me. You know, if anything, I could have stayed in with Kangaskhan and attacked with Aegislash, but I'm just going to play a bit safer right now since Aegislash is a pretty darn good counter to Kangaskhan, and I get a free Intimidate here, so there's little downside. Especially if I can knock out Cresselia, you know, next turn, then Kangaskhan will be stuck at -1. Of course, unless he has Power Up Punch, which wouldn't surprise me. But he's going to Mega Evolve here. Let's see if he goes for a Fake Out. Maybe he gets a bit greedy and tries to Sucker Punch me, but I'm not going to allow for that to happen. Oh, he goes for the Helping Hand. So maybe a Double Edge onto the Landorus slot? That would be a really good play. We'll see. I mean, I don't think he went for the Sucker Punch here. But he's going to go for the... Wow, Helping Hand Fake Out. Well, you don't see that every day. But interesting play there. Regardless, though, that's perfectly okay with me. I mean, that play makes sense just to get as much mileage off from the damage, but I think it would have made a bit more sense to have gone for an Ice Beam or a Thunder Wave, since you should predict me to stay in or switch out. One of the two, but, you know, you're not going to get that much damage off. I guess he wasn't expecting the Intimidate there, which is also kind of a big factor, which, you know, makes sense. So I think here I want to U-turn the Cresselia, and just... actually, I'm going to U-turn Cresselia and Shadow Ball it, because he might switch into his Aegislash in that slot. Yeah. Oh, but he stays in and goes for the Helping Hand. Oh, this is kind of silly, because now he might have gone for the Sucker Punch onto Aegislash. Oh, but he targets Landorus, okay. I don't think that's going to knock me out. Yeah, I stay alive at 18 HP. But unfortunately, the Shadow Ball target's going to go into Kangaskhan, which is kind of a careless play on my end. I don't mind that too much, just because now his Kangaskhan's going to be at -2 after I switch in Landorus once again. But it is some wasted, you know, damage off there with the Aegislash. But, you know, I'll take it. It is what it is. However, I do get a free switch in here to my Kangaskhan, which is always great. And we'll see what he brings in. Of course, Shadow Ball, not going to work here, but the next turn I can just go for a Fake Out, switch back out into my Landorus to get another Intimidate off. So yeah, Flash Cannon would have been really, really good there, just because with Fake Out and Sucker Punch could have actually just closed out the game. And his last one is Rotom, which I'm more than okay to see with. So that's good. I do get a free Fake Out here. And let's see. The game's still definitely still not over, just because Aegislash is paralyzed and the Landorus is at such low HP. So I do have to still play smartly. I'm leaning towards faking out the Rotom, though, and switching out into my Landorus right now. I just want to get that second Intimidate off. And I do like that. He doesn't have great ways to beat the Aegislash in terms of damage output, and this way, by getting the double Intimidate off against Kangaskhan, he might not be able to knock out the Rotom Wash, which I have saved up and back. So I'm just going to shuffle what Intimidates right now, and this means a Double Edge or a Low Kick should not knock out my Kangaskhan as well. So I just don't want to get burned right now, because that's the most important thing. He's not going to Protect with either of his Pokemon. You know, Kangaskhan probably doesn't carry Protect since it revealed Fake Out already. You see, Fake Out does a very good amount of damage here to Rotom. He goes for the Power Up Punch, though. Nice play on his end, so he does reveal the Power Up Punch. And that makes this game a bit more tricky. just because now he's sitting back at neutral, and that's a bit concerning. Alright, now we have a game. So let's see. I think he kind of has to Sucker Punch Landorus here. A potential play I could make is going for the superpower onto Kangaskhan. And the low kick. Yeah, I'm gonna double into Kangaskhan here, because he can only knock out one of my 2 Pokemon at most. And if he somehow, doesn't target Landorus and let's say I'm faster or I win the speed tide, then the game's definitely over. But really scary position and a great move by my opponent. Wasn't sure if he had the power-up punch because I thought it would have come out maybe a bit earlier, but he does end up having it. That's one of the differences between my Kangaskhan and his. I would actually prefer power-up punch, but the team was, from another player who preferred low kick, which makes sense given the offensive nature. You just want to pick up knockouts, especially against Pokemon like Heatran. So we'll see how this game closes out now. It is very close. He does go for the Sucker Punch here, targeting Landorus. Okay, yeah. So good play on his end. I think he needed to make that play. But, regardless, I'm going to be able to do a lot of damage here to Kangaskhan, if not knock it out. We'll see how bulky it is. Yeah, he's going to hang on just with a bit of HP. Enough that a Sucker Punch will knock it out, though. Rotom does go for the Will-O-Wisp, which is nice here, because now that Kangaskhan will fall to a Sucker Punch. So, we trade turns there, really. He gets a knockout, I almost get a knockout, he gets the burn on Kangaskhan, but that Kangaskhan on his side now is sitting at very, very low HP. So I'm actually going to bring in Aegislash right now. Yeah. And the reason I bring in Aegislash here is he has to double target it to knock it out. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to Flash Cannon his Kangaskhan and Sucker Punch it. If I win the speed tie outright, I win, just with the Rotom in the back as well. And I managed to outspeed him. I don't know how fast he is, but regardless, that Sucker Punch is going to take out the Kangaskhan. And with Aegislash and a Rotom still in the back, that's going to be able to beat game. As long as he doesn't crit me too much. Hydro Pump comes out, he actually misses the Aegislash as well, so unfortunate RNG roll for my opponent there. Don't think it really mattered too much at this point in the game, but, so there were really 2 wasted turns of damage output in this game. One, the Flash Cannon onto Rotom, and 2, the Shadow Ball into the Kangaskhan. But both of those were just me making the safer play possible, assuming any switch outs that my opponent could have made in the back. So I'm just going to play it safe here. I'm just going to King Shield, no reason not to, and go for a double edge. He's going to protect, but that's more than okay with me because it allows me to get myself back into a defense form. So with the offensive Rotom Wash in the back, it would be hard to win a 3-on-1 here for Rotom. But, might as well try. When paralysis is a factor in the game, it's never over until it really is actually over, so you shouldn't give up. But, Kangaskhan still gets a free double edge off here, and even a burn Kangaskhan's double edge does a lot of damage. This was a really intense game, though. That first turn basically paid off so much, though. The lead matchup basically helped me out a ton. Now, Volcarona, actually, in retrospect, wouldn't have been a terrible call this game if I led Kangaskhan Volcarona, but I just didn't feel comfortable enough with that since my opponent did have the Landorus, even though he didn't ultimately bring it. It wasn't a call that I felt better with this team composition since I knew it could deal with whatever my opponent brought against me. So I'm going to feint from the burn here. Let's see if Aegislash gets fully paralyzed. Doesn't really matter at this point since my Rotom is max speed and will outspeed him. Full paralysis does come out, but I was fortunate enough to hit my attacks earlier on, so I can't really complain. Kangaskhan's going to feint to burn here, but now my Rotom comes in for free. He did go for the double, which is fair. I guess he was just trying to stall me out from the burn, but at this point it's really just dragging it on. So Rotom's going to be able to come in, and you guys all know this is an offensive Rotom, so I'll just be able to Thunderbolt and Shadow Ball. Rotom's one of the Pokemon in the format that can't really win 2-on-1s unless both of the Pokemon are really weak to it. Rotom mirror matches often are pretty even, so then if you factor in another Pokemon, it's almost always going to be on the opposing side where it's 2-on-1. But Thunderbolt's going to come out here. With that Life Orb, going to be able to pick up the knockout into Rotom, and we're going to be able to win a really intense first game of today's episode. We had very similar team compositions there, but fortunately, I was able to knock out the Cresselia before anything. Brought a lead combination that completely shut down Terrakion, which was probably the most important thing. You'd imagine if I didn't have any great options to the Terrakion matchup, it would have been really, really bad. And this game could have easily gone the other way if I did not unthaw with that Kangaskhan that first turn, just because it allowed me to keep Kangaskhan around for a lot longer and force my opponent to try to target it down, and then consequently knocking out the Terrakion. So that was really fortunate. But we're going to jump onto the ladder, slowly inching towards 1700 now, sitting at a rating of 1688. 1688, yeah. So we're going to have one more game today, 2 more games tomorrow, and then that's going to be it with this team. So, it's been a really good run. This was the team that I basically used since I got back from vacation, so you know, 200-point gain is pretty solid, and then we'll try to hit the 1800s next week, although next week is also Nationals weekend, so that should be really exciting. But we're going to find Toddy from Canada with a rating of 1672 for our next opponent of the day, and this game should actually put us over 1700 if we win. But he's got a very familiar-looking team. For those that don't know, this is a team that two very notable players used at their respective regional championships. Crow and Colin Hire used it at Washington, or I think it was Washington Regionals and Madison Regionals. Colin won with it, and Colin, of course, finishing third at Worlds last year, one of the best players in the game. Played this, you guys might have actually seen him on stream over there at Madison. It's a really solid team. The team report for this team actually just went up, so I wonder if my opponent like saw the report and was like, oh, let me try to make it right now. Some tricks that you may not know: Calm Mind Sylveon with Protect and Hidden Power, Cresselia with Trick Room, Rhyperior, you know, the Trick Room mode, and then you've also got Fast Mega Salamence, where I think it's like mixed, and then Safety Goggles Heatran, I think, and then just Swagger Thunderous. So very scary overall team composition, and it's going to be difficult to manage this one. Rotom Wash, incredibly important, I think, so I'm going to lead with Rotom Wash, actually. Yeah, I actually really like Rotom Wash Aegislash here. It just gives me a lot of options from the start. And for the back two, I'm leaning towards Kangaskhan and Landorus. Volcarona wouldn't be bad here for Giga Drain, but the thing is I'd have to make sure that one, he doesn't have Heatran or Salamence out, and two, I can Trick Room isn't up. So there are too many like options I'd really have to play into to get it out here. But maybe it's still worth it over like a Landorus. I'm definitely still considering it. Landorus' Intimidate is just really, really nice, though, especially because he's got Drill Run most likely on that Rhyperior, which can do a whole lot of damage to Aegislash. But you know what? I'm actually going to go with Volcarona, I think. Actually, the reason why I don't want to go with Volcarona is because Landorus has an optimal matchup against Mega Salamence, whereas Volcarona doesn't. So as much as I'd like to bring Volcarona, I still think Landorus is too important here. The Salamence matchup is just essential. Mega Salamence being one of the best Mega Evolutions in the game, you can't just you know, not have many checks to it. And while Rotom does have Hidden Power Ice, I just feel a bit more comfortable bringing Landorus here for the Intimidate as well. And Intimidate always helps out in any game you're in. Like, it just allows you to make switch-ins and, you know, decrease your opponent's chances of KOing you. So we're going to see the Thunderous Salamence lead here, which is incredibly strong. Not the Trick Room option here, against my Rotom and Aegislash. So this isn't too bad, actually, just because he can't do too much right now. Though that Salamence, I believe, should have Draco Meteor, which might be somewhat problematic. So let's see what we can do this first turn. I would think he'd want a Draco Meteor. And for those that actually want to see this team, I'll link it in the description below, just because the team report was released a few hours ago. But if it is an exact copycat of the team, he should have Draco Meteor, Earthquake, and Return with his Salamence. And Thunderous should have... He might just Swagger me right from the start, which I'm not very fond of. So I kind of want to switch Rotom out into Landorus. Or I could just go for the Hidden Power Ice. But nope, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch out into Landorus, get the Intimidate off, and Shadow Ball the Thunderous. This way I can Rock Slide to knock it out the following turn, and Rotom doesn't faint to a Draco Meteor. This Salamence should be admin, so Draco Meteor shouldn't knock out Landorus. You know, this Rotom being as furrowed as it is, I don't want to take too much damage immediately, since it's incredibly good against the potential Heatran in the back and the Rhyperior. You know, I can knock out both of those in one hit, so I'm just going to bring Landorus, and I do think Landorus ultimately was the right call. This is like an ideal position for Landorus to be in, and I want the Shadow Ball against Thunderous so it can be in Rock Slide KO range, because that would actually put me in a very advantageous position, but we're going to see what he goes for here. He might just choose the Swagger immediately, which would be very annoying, but nope. He goes for the Draco here, onto the Landorus slot. Good play on his end, you know, that's what I figured he'd go for. Let's see if it knocks me out. Nope, Landorus is able to hang on with more than enough HP, fortunately enough. And he does go for the Thunderbolt onto the Landorus slot. Perfect. So I figured that's what he'd go for, the double target, but I didn't want to protect with Rotom because then he could just make the same play the following turn. So this actually really works out in my favor because now that Thunderous is in Rock Slide KO range. Actually, I'm not sure because I was hoping I would do just under the Citrus Berry range, but now I might not knock him out, which is a bit scary. But definitely want to Rock Slide here. Salamence is at -2 special attack. He's still got Earthquake though, which he might go for. So the question is, do I want to attack with Aegislash here? That is the question. Earthquake shouldn't knock me out, so you know what? I'm just going to go for the attack and target down the Salamence with, do I want a Flash Cannon or Shadow Ball? I like just looking at his team. I like Flash Cannon a bit more. Just in case he switches into Sylveon. Yeah. Alright, let's see what he goes for. Yeah, it's a tricky kind of position for both of us to be in, just because I don't think Rockslide can knock out Thundurus. Which I was kind of hoping, you know, it would be able to. But regardless, you know, that turn one was definitely in my favor since I didn't lose the Rotom Wash immediately. And I do put on some more offensive pressure this next turn. But if he switches out, no, he's going to stay in with both. He's going to choose to attack with both. Okay, so immediately I do have a 51% chance of flinching, which is great, but I don't knock out the Thundurus. I do flinch the Salamence. Thundurus, however, gets the hidden power off, which is obviously great for my opponent. So he's going to be able to knock me out, but fortunately, you know, one of the two is good. I'm going to be able to get a free attack off against the Salamence, which is fantastic. So Flash Cannon is going to be able to come out. Let's see how much damage he does here. I don't think he'll knock it out, but should come very close, yeah. So both of my opponent's Pokemon hanging on with just a bit of HP, which is obviously great for my opponent. I'm going to bring in Kangaskhan now. And I'm going to definitely fake out Thundurus. And let's see, there's a chance he switches out Thundurus. Presumably, who would he have in the back? Regardless, I mean, the Intimidate against Salamence was really good, because now he can't do too much to me. I wonder if he's going to choose the Earthquake, though. I kind of want to play safer here in King Shield. Yeah, I'm going to go for it. Because worst comes to worst, he gets a -1 return off against Kangaskhan, but Aegislash is too important in this matchup to lose earlier on. Just because looking at my opponent's team, it does very, very well against the Sylveon, the Cresselia, you know, even against the Rhyperior, and then Rotom and Aegislash can close out this game. So I'm, you know, I would rather have Aegislash here, and I'd rather actually just try to pick up a knockout and have Salamence be in Sucker Punch KO range, so it actually gives me some offensive pressure the following turn as well. He's going to stay in with both, which I'm more than okay with, because I get a free knockout onto Thundurus here. You know, the worst is if it gets a Thunder Wave or Swagger off before it faints, but that's not going to be the case, which is good for me here. So I'm just going to play it safe here with Aegislash. Do not want to take any damage. Just, you know, putting myself back into shield form, and that way, if he actually goes for Earthquake in consequent turns, he'll activate my weakness policy. Although I guess if I stayed in Blade form, it would have happened as well. But, you know, like I said, I just don't want Aegislash to take unnecessary damage. He's probably going to return Kangaskhan here. That's what I would probably go for. But he goes for the Earthquake. Okay, yeah. So I don't mind that call, because that's not going to do too much to Kangaskhan at -1. Yeah, so Landers, you know, that's why that Intimidate is so helpful. And ultimately, it put in a lot of work that game. You know, I got pretty fortunate with that flinch as well, giving me an advantage. So we'll see who he switches in here, but now I'm in a very good position. It's going to be Rhyperior, which I'm okay with. Especially with Wide Guard. Though he has Drill Run, which makes things kind of interesting. Low Kick shouldn't knock him out. I'm actually wondering how fast he is, because in the original team, it was Adamant Nature with 19 or 31 speed. Yeah, I think he's going to Drill Run. He probably has Weakness Policy. That's the one that the players ran. Now we're in an interesting position. Just quickly referencing, yeah, let's see. I mean, I could Wide Guard, but I don't think he's gonna, I think he'd probably Drill Run the Aegislash slot. I don't even know if he has Earthquake, because the original one didn't have it. You know what, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna Sucker Punch Salamence and switch out into Rotom Wash, because Rotom Wash is one of the best answers to Rhyperior in general. One play he could make here is if he has Cresselia, switch Salamence out into Cresselia. Rendering my attack useless, but looks like he's gonna stay in, which is good for me. So I'm gonna bring in Rotom here. Salamence protects, good play. Let's see what Rhyperior goes for. I'm actually more than okay here, because he's not gonna get a knockout regardless of who he targets. He does go for the Drill Run onto the Rotom slot, so that's exactly what I was hoping for, and that works out perfectly. So now this gets me into a very, very good position, and I can go for the Double Edge onto Salamence. And the reason why I'm double edging here is because I don't want to, there's a decent chance he switches into his Cresselia here, and there's really no way Rhyperior is attacking here, at least I don't anticipate it, so I'm going to double up in that slot with a Double Edge and a Hydro Pump. I think we might see the Salamence switch out into the last Pokemon here. Even if it doesn't, he gets an attack off, sure, but then I knock it out with my Double Edge. And you know, this is the thing, unless he goes for a double protect, but that play wouldn't make very much sense to me. So in this case, you know, if he decides to attack with Rhyperior, then Double Edge knocks out Salamence and Hydro Pump knocks out Rhyperior. He's actually going to pull out the Rhyperior into his last Pokemon, which is going to be that Cresselia, so it's a very solid play on his end. You know, I was expecting to go the opposite way. Solomons gets a return off before it feigns, so that's great for my opponent. You know, I ended up taking a bit more damage there than really I would have anticipated or hoped for. But Solomons here is going to feint, and the original Cresselia, I believe, didn't have Citrus Berry, so if Hydro Pump connects here, I can just double target the Cresselia next turn with a Thunderbolt and a Hydro Pump, Double Edge. And fortunately, Hydro Pump does connect, so with that Life Orb and the Modest Nature, does a lot of damage. You don't normally see that damage off against Cresselia, which is fantastic. So now all I have to do this next turn is double up on Cresselia, and should be able to knock it out. But let's see, he's going to bring in Rhyperior here. And yeah. I'm just going to double edge, and do I want to risk the Hydro Pump? Or should I Thunderbolt? I'm going to Thunderbolt. I'll play it safer here. I think double edge plus Thunderbolt should be enough. And Cresselia is a Pokemon that basically never carries... well, actually, I shouldn't say never. A fair amount of times it carries Protected. He goes for the Protect with the Rhyperior, but obviously I'm not going to try to knock that out since I know he has a Trick Room. So Kangaskhan's going to double edge into the Cresselia slot. Normally has Rocky Helmet. Yeah, but I'm going to be able to get 2 hits off. Perfect. Great. So Kangaskhan's going to feint here, but Thunderbolt should be able to knock out the Cresselia, and that should be game. Let's see. Unless he has, like, Lightning Rod Rhyperior, but no, you obviously run Solid Rock. So made the right prediction there, but I also felt relatively safe making that play because I knew there wasn't very much he could do against a Rotom. You know, Rotom being one of the better answers against a Rhyperior. So now I just bring in Aegislash, and with Hydro Pump, I can easily win the game as long as I connect. But yeah, I'm just going to go for the Flash Cannon and the Hydro Pump here. I do want to know who's faster between the Rhyperior and the Aegislash though, so I'll get to find out here. Actually, I missed the Hydro Pump, which makes this game a bit more interesting, but I am faster here, so 2 Flash Cannons should knock him out. But I'm going to activate his Weakness Policy, which is always a bit scary. Let's see how much this does. Yeah, comes very close to knocking it out. Unfortunately, doesn't knock it out, but he's at the point where, you know, I just need one of my 2 attacks to hit. But I guess you get, like, double crit Rock Slide here. Oh, he goes for the Drill Run, though. Okay. So that's going to knock out Aegislash, but now I just hit him Power Ice and knock out the Rhyperior. A very great game to my opponent, though. You know, this team is a very solid team. There's a reason why I finished 3rd at one regional championship and won another one. But obviously the main creators of the game, or the team, know it very well. And this looks like someone who's just trying out the team. Still a very hard-fought battle, but fortunately enough, the lander switch in early on was very, very clutch. So Hidden Power Ice is able to come out, and that's going to be able to pick up the knockout on Rhyperior. Obviously, don't want to risk a Hydro Pump miss because Rock Slide might actually knock me out, especially with that Weakness Policy. So this win does put us over the 1700s, which is pretty exciting. So hopefully next week we can, you know, get into the 1800s and then eventually push for the 1900s after that. But a longer episode for you guys today, but 2 really good games. These games, you know, are getting a lot more solid as we face higher rated opponents. So very well played to my opponent there. Both games today were really exciting. Unfortunately, not too much RNG, though I did get a pretty lucky in this. Both episodes, actually. The first one on Thali, and then the second one getting a flinch earlier on with Rock Slide. But yeah, that's going to be it for this episode, guys. Leave a like always if you enjoyed it, and I shall see you guys tomorrow. Alright, peace.